Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. So today I am continuing my Fill the World project where I create houses for all of the empty lots in each of the worlds, and this time I am working in Willow Creek once again. So this is a house for the lot that's originally called Hallow Slough? I don't know how to say that word. I'm gonna admit it, I have no idea. But yeah, so anyways, so this house I've called the Green and Gray Goddess. It's kind of like a southern Victorian styled house. It very much blends in with the other houses in the neighborhood, I think. Like it all sort of goes together. But yeah, so I haven't done one of these styles of houses in a long time. I'm not even sure that I've done a video of like a Victorian styled house. I know that I've built them before, but I don't always make videos for things that I build, which is why I recommend you follow me on the gallery. And it's been a little while. But for some reason, whenever I build on this lot, this is the type of house that I tend to gravitate towards, probably because with the other houses in the area all sort of having that same sort of like southern, very fancy kind of vibe about it. That's just what I naturally gravitate towards. And that is definitely true with this house. So yeah, and actually the outside of the house uses almost entirely base game stuff. Now obviously that's not true once you get inside of the house and I have to start furnishing it, but like the doors and windows and the trims and everything, that's all base game stuff. So it definitely does blend in well with everything else around it. And yeah, I don't really know why I decided on goddess, but I like alliteration, and I was like, well, the house is green and gray in colors, so we've got green, gray, goddess, sure, why not? But yeah, so, I don't know, it's fun. I like doing these types of houses. They're very fancy, and yet they're not like over-the-top mansion houses, you know? Like, I mean, price-wise, they're definitely up there, but like, as far as actually like building the house and furnishing it, it's really not something that's like out of my comfort zone. I really am not a huge fan of doing like big mansion builds because I just, even after like what, 4 years of The Sims 4, I still feel like there isn't enough stuff in the game to be able to furnish one of those big houses and not like repeat objects. As it is, I'm sure that I repeat like paintings and stuff in these houses. Just because I have my favorites that I tend to gravitate towards. And there are, for specific like wall sizes that are like, or spaces on the wall rather, not necessarily wall sizes. But there are like, if you're trying to stick with a specific style, like a very traditional looking picture, for example, there's only so many options we have. We, for some reason, I was noticing this when I was doing this build, we have so many of those like wall decal stickers that came with the cats and dogs pack. We have so many things that are like that, and I never use them. They're basically good for like doing a vet's office or maybe like a kid's bedroom, but like who's going to have like a sticker on the wall of like a cat chasing after a ball of yarn or something like in their living room? Like it's just kind of strange. Like I feel like we have a lot of paintings that are just sort of extra clutter that, I don't know, I'm just not a huge fan of. And then we got more of that sort of thing in Seasons, but it's all like seasonally based, which at least there it's like, all right, it's a little bit more understandable. But again, most of that stuff I don't use like ever. So I don't know. So I do tend to like, especially in decorating, tend to use the same objects over and over again. I guess this is basically a really long-winded way of saying that I am really ready for new content for The Sims to come out. Like, I know that we just had an expansion pack in June, but it's already the end of September. And I know that they've said that there's going to be some sort of paid content coming out by the end of the year, but I'm very curious as to what that's going to be. And I don't know. It's been a long time since we've had a game pack, and so I could see it being a game pack because I think the last game pack was Jungle Adventure, and that came out in February, right? That's the last one. I'm not making that up, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure the last one was Jungle Adventure. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing one. it's honestly, it's like, I constantly want new content, but at the same time, I also realize that there's a lot that we've already gotten. So, I don't know. But I'm like, alright, well, if we're gonna continue to have more stuff for The Sims 4 coming out, then we gotta have more stuff for The Sims 4 coming out, you know? So, but yeah, so anyways, I think I'm at that point now where I'm really ready for new stuff. And it's becoming more and more difficult for me to, like, be motivated to continue using the stuff that we already have, because I want more. I am greedy and I want more things. So yeah, so anyways, so this is the Green and Gray Goddess. Like I said before, it's a very like Southern Victorian traditional kind of house. So there's this big entryway here, and off to the right there's a dining room, off to the left there's a big living room. In front there's a full bath on the first floor, which I usually don't do full baths on the first floor, but when I was doing the floor plan of the second floor, I realized that there wasn't going to be enough room to do a third full bathroom upstairs. And when you see how many bedrooms and how many beds I've put into all of the bedrooms, it's one of those houses where, like, yeah, you could probably use that third full bath. So normally I would do just a half bath there, but yeah, you know, clearly if you're living in this house, you've got maybe a little bit of extra money to burn. So, you know, what's an extra shower and tub at that point? So this is the living room area. You know, I actually put in a fireplace. I tend to forget about using fireplaces altogether in The Sims. I don't know why. I mean, like, I guess I didn't grow up in a house that had a fireplace in it, and I don't have a house now that has a fireplace, so it's just not a thing I really ever think about. But this is a house that I think definitely, it deserves a fireplace. So I wanted to make this room be like a common gathering type of area. So it's like there's a piano. So, you know, in theory, you and your Sims can gather around the piano and listen to people play the piano. And there's a card table in the corner, or a game table. And then obviously the large seating area for watching TV or just sitting back and enjoying the fireplace, whatever you feel like. But yeah, and so it was kind of fun doing something that used a lot more of like the base game items in the decoration scheme. Like, you can really tell going back that when they were picking out the items that were in the base game, that they specifically chose things that fit this theme of Willow Creek. Like those big heavy drapes, you know, I think I only ever put them in these like more fancy and formal houses. And not to say that they couldn't fit other places, but I think they just are a more natural fit here. So, and then I put in, next to the fireplace, I put in a couple of those like fern plant things, and I scaled them down a little bit. I've started doing that a lot recently. I feel like a lot of objects in The Sims 4 are just a little too big, especially the decoration objects. So I scaled them down just like, you know, one click. And I think they fit that space a lot better that way, because they don't need to be like huge. Although I did realize when I went back through to do screenshots that the plant to the right of the fireplace, like underneath the picture of the lady, that plant disappeared. Don't know why. I mean, like, I had to use the Move Objects cheat to place them there, but why did the plant on one side of the fireplace get to stay and the other plant disappear? I don't know. I mean, like, whatever. I also noticed that there was a tile of wallpaper that from the kitchen that sort of bled over into the living room. So at some point, obviously, when I was doing the wallpaper for this room, I don't know, I must have clicked and it moved. You know, it was a time. It was quite a time I had building this. Once again, because it's a bigger house, this took me a little bit more time than a normal, like, smaller family home build would do. But I was actually, Lil Simsy was doing a 13-hour live stream, so while I was watching the stream, I was building this. So it wasn't too bad. It did mean that when I went back to edit, I definitely had some things that I had to cut out, because there were times where I just sort of zoned out and didn't really pay attention to the fact that I was recording a video. And, you know, it's fine. So this is the kitchen. It's definitely, like, again, it's more traditional in style. I really like using that wood-burning stove. I don't know. It's a nice looking stove, and I think the animations on it look a little bit, I don't know, they look different compared to the regular stoves that we have in the game. I'm not really sure if they actually are, but to me they always look a little bit unique and different. And so I wanted to, I used like this dark gray brick on the walls, kind of going after like what an older kitchen, I mean, okay, so historically speaking, a kitchen in this house probably wouldn't have actually have been attached to the house itself. It would have been in a separate building, because if the fire got out of control, you don't want it to burn down the entire house, but if it just burns down the standalone kitchen building, you know, like, that stinks, but it's not a catastrophe that would destroy your entire house. But a lot of times they were built out of brick, because brick is a lot more difficult to catch on fire than wood. So that's why I decided to do the brick, and I kind of wanted this house to feel like it was an older home, and then maybe along the way there have been some renovations and remodeling, but like not all the way. So obviously, like, the kitchen counters are still like very traditional looking, but they're maybe a little bit newer than what would have been here originally, because, you know, it's The Sims. We don't obviously have that many historically accurate things, but so yeah, so nice big kitchen, lots of space to work. It's dark in color, which I don't tend to do very much in kitchens. I don't know, I prefer my kitchens to be a little bit bright and airier. I don't know, I always think of like breakfast time when I think of kitchens, not so much like darker dinner times. I don't know, it's just a thing that I think about. But so I tend to do like brighter colors, or like white kitchen cabinets and little like pastel colors and that sort of thing. But so I went with a very different direction on this. Also, because this house is set in the South, you know, assuming the American South, that is, instead of doing a coffee pot, I put a tea kettle instead. Because if you know anything about the South, they love their tea, specifically sweet tea. I mean, they also drink coffee too, but they're really more known for being tea drinkers than coffee drinkers. So I decided to go with a nice little thing of tea instead of coffee. I mean, like, whatever. I don't know. I think the tea is a little bit underused in The Sims 4, at least by me. I usually put coffee. If I put one of the beverage makers in, I'll put the coffee pot in instead. But it took me a long time after The Sims 4 came out to realize that you can like brew different types of tea on the tea kettle to change the Sims' emotions. I had no idea that was a thing. Like, I read it once, like on the Sims forums or something, and I was like, what? When did they put that in there? Because I drink peppermint tea in the winter occasionally, but even then, like, it's not a very common thing for me to drink. Or I'll get like a chai tea latte from Starbucks because it's really good and I like it a lot. And sometimes I get tired of drinking frappuccinos and iced coffees in the summertime, so I'll go for an iced chai tea latte instead. But yeah, so it's just not something that I personally use very often in real life, so I don't know, I never really thought about it in The Sims. And then once I realized that, I was like, well, okay, I guess I've been missing out. I should probably use tea more in my houses. But yeah, so this is obviously the dining room. I went with like a very patriotic red, white, and blue theme. And, you know, like, again, very traditional furnishings. I also, I wanted something in this corner behind the bar. So eventually I decided to do like a little display case with a steamboat in it. Because for one thing, the steamboat matched the colors of the room. And because, you know, this is Willow Creek. And there actually is a steamboat that runs through Willow Creek. I thought it would be very appropriate. And then, just sticking with that red, white, and blue, very patriotic color theme all throughout. I put up a wreath on the wall. I think it's technically a Christmas wreath, but whatever. It fit with the color scheme, so I went with it. And so now we're upstairs, so this is the master bedroom. Eventually, I love this bed, but I wish we had different color swatches on it. Specifically, I wish we had the ability to swap out the bed frames from the blankets or the sheets or whatever, because I'm so tired of the same beds over and over and over again. So I tried to branch out, but then that like light brown color, like I really liked the quilt that was on that bed, but that light brown color wood isn't used from any other pack besides cats and dogs. So I found the end tables that matched it, but then like the dresser, there is a dresser from cats and dogs, but I didn't like it for this room. It's that one that's like a little bit taller and narrower, but you can still put stuff on top of it, and like it's a very different looking dresser, I think, compared to what the rest of the furniture from that bedroom set would be, because it's not quite as traditional looking, and I preferred the look of this white dresser that I wound up with. And of course then the vanity, being from Vintage Glamour stuff, really does not go with that light brown wood color. So I went to my usual black or white. So in this case the white had that green and purple bedding on it, so that's kind of the color scheme that I went with for the rest of the room. I've started doing like, I won't paint the walls of a room until I get like the big furniture items in it. So like in the living room, it was after I did the sofas. Bedrooms, it's after I do the beds and like some of the bigger bedroom furniture like dressers. In the kitchen and dining room, you know, once I have the kitchen counters or the dining room table and chairs, and then I'll go back and try to find wall stuff that matches. Because while I wish we had more wall stuff, we have way more wall stuff than we do furniture options. So it's easier, I think, to pick out the furniture first and then kind of build around that. Whereas if I picked out the wall color first, then I'm a lot more limited because, you know, we only have so many different colors of different beds and colors of different kitchen cabinets and that sort of thing. So that's just, you know, a fun little tip. And so that's just sort of what I've taken to doing, especially because, you know, since coming back and doing more builds, I've really only done houses. And in community lots, I feel like you have a little bit more freedom as far as like the colors of things that you choose. But with a house, you know, to me, it feels like your options are a little bit more limited, because like in a bedroom, like you obviously have to have a bed. You can't skip that. Whereas in a community lot, like if you don't want to have a sofa in your nightclub, it's not that big of a deal because you could do a love seat instead, or just some armchairs. And I know that there are like lot requirements there, but I don't know. It doesn't feel quite as like confined to me. So this room here, this little green room, is a nursery. I put in a crib and also a toddler bed because it's a small room. It's definitely the smallest bedroom in the house, but it's a little bit bigger than a lot of times the toddler rooms that I end up with. Those poor toddlers, they end up with such tiny bedrooms in my houses sometimes. But yeah, so with the kids' bedrooms in this house, I did something a little different. Usually I'll do like a nursery that could either be for boys or girls, and then I'll do like a kid girl bedroom and a kid boy bedroom, or I'll do like very obviously a teen bedroom but either for a girl or a boy, or a kid bedroom but very obviously for a girl or a boy. So this time, instead of doing that, I made all of the bedrooms much more gender neutral. Usually I try to do my nursery or toddler room a little bit more gender neutral, but every once in a while, like I think in the last house that I built, the toddler room was like pink and purple. Like, okay, so that's probably going to be for a little girl. Doesn't have to be, but that's kind of what it's geared towards. But yeah, so I wanted to do something a little different. And then this other little small room here is the computer room, because as you know, I always like to put my computer in the house. First of all, I like having a computer in the house anyways, because if you use the mod MC Command Center, which I've used for years at this point, you kind of need to have a computer on your lot to get all of the functionality out of the mod. But it drives me up a wall when I have Sims come over to my house, either just on their own or for an actual party, and they don't want to talk to my Sims, they just want to hang out on the computer the whole time. So I've taken to putting it in a bedroom or in a room with a door, and then I can lock it, and then they can't get in. So, and because this room literally just has the computer in it, like there's really no other reason for a Sim to be in there unless they're going to be on the computer, and I can lock the door. Also because then, like sometimes, you know, depending on the household I'm playing, I don't always want all of my Sims to have access to that room, you know, like it's sort of like a way of enforcing like grounding for kids and teenagers and stuff, or, like where you say like, oh no, you can't be on the computer for one day because you broke curfew or something. This is kind of like an old school way to get around that. So I can say like, I just lock the door so only the parents can get in, or only one person in particular can get in, and then I can change it as I want. So this here is the kid bedroom. So I kind of went with like a blue and green and like a light purpley pastel kind of color scheme in here. So yeah, mostly shades of blue. The other thing that I've taken to doing a lot of the times in my builds is I will put in 2 twin beds in a kid's room. And that's just because I tend to play with bigger families a lot of times, like in my own personal gameplay. I just find it more fun and interesting. And so because of that, then I usually will end up putting in multiple beds in a bedroom if I can help it. Obviously that doesn't always work out, but these rooms are big enough where we can get away with that a little bit. So yeah, and I got to use one of my favorite items, that toy bucket with like the little blocks and stuff off to the side. I was so excited that I found a spot for that to work in this build because, I don't know, I think it's a really well-made item and it looks very realistic. But I also don't always have the space for it in my builds. So I was very excited to get a chance to use that. And so this room here with the green and blue and yellow is our teen room. Again, it's pretty gender neutral, I think. And once again, I put in the beds and I was like, all right, so we've got this bed, because I knew I wanted to use that bed because I wanted to use a different style of bed than what was in the kid room. And this was kind of the only, like, what I would consider to be gender neutral color swatch on it. Everything else was either like very masculine or very feminine. So I was like, all right, so we've got yellow and green and light blue as the colors for this room, which I think turned out really good. I was a little surprised. This isn't really a color scheme that I've ever done before in a build, but I'm very impressed with how this turned out. Not to like brag or anything, but I was very pleased. And then I put in an empty desk, so, the teens have a spot to either write in their journal or do homework or whatever. I also realized in this room that I forgot to put a stereo in downstairs, so I put the one and only stereo in the house up here, which could end up being kind of an issue for a party, but, I also thought, like, well, that's kind of a cool thing for a teenager to have in their room. We don't have very many, like, teen-specific items in the game, I've realized. Like, everything is either, like, for kids or teens, young adults, adults, and elders. So I wanted something that was like, teenagers. I always think of like teenagers being more into music because that's typically how that works. Like, personally, my own musical tastes are definitely defined by my teenage years. So, I think that that's pretty common across the board. So I always put in something, either like an instrument or a radio or something, just to kind of symbolize that, like, this room is meant for a teenager. So then, with this lot size, it's a 30 by 20 lot, which, you probably could get away with placing this house on a bigger lot and having more of a yard. But because of how the size of the house was, there isn't really a huge backyard area. So I sort of made up for it by having this like huge wraparound porch go around the entire house. So we've got like a nice little table and chairs, and a grill with like an actual counter space area, and of course the drink pitcher from Backyard Stuff. I don't remember which stuff pack that came out. Well, there are, like as I was saying before, like there's a lot of packs and I want more, but like especially with some of those outdoor themed stuff packs, it's really hard for me to keep track of them all. And then the other thing that I did was I put in the ceiling fans that we got in the August patch around the porch, because in reality, if you were sitting outside in the southern heat, you would want some airflow going because it gets quite muggy. So there's 2 ceiling fans on the front porch area, and then there's 2 on the back porch area. And then there's also ceiling fans in the living room, just because I thought, maybe not a dining room thing necessarily, But especially in a room where you're spending a lot of time, you know, just lounging about, playing cards with your family, listening to music, you probably would want something to keep it cool. I actually intentionally did not place a thermostat in this build, even though, you know, it probably would have one. But I was like, no, the Sims who live in this house, because it's supposed to be an older style house, they can suffer a little bit. And I know that the ceiling fans don't actually impact temperature, but maybe they will someday. Who knows? Maybe they'll patch that in at some point. But yeah, so anyway, so this house is the Green and Gray Goddess. It's currently available for download on the Sims 4 gallery. You can get to it through either using the link in the description box below, which is the easiest way, or you can also just search for it on the Sims 4 gallery. Just make sure you switch the filters on the side to say newest before you search, otherwise it won't show up. And it doesn't default to newest anymore, so click newest, and then you can either search using my username, which is Mrs. Tomato 1018, or you can search for it using the hashtag Mrs. Tomato 1018. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you can do so down below. I put up a new video every single day, Monday through Friday. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!
Thank you.